Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our channel where we talk everything marketing and mainly SEO. Today, we are taking a little bit a different approach. We are talking to Cordelia. She is a well-known talent specialist, I would say talent expert in our industry. So we will be talking, what does she see as a trend in 2026 and maybe late 2025? Which skills from marketing and SEO are in demand? Hello, Cordelia. Thank you so much for joining us and agreeing to share your knowledge. Welcome to our channel.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to our discussion today.
As I told you before we started to record, I get job offers almost weekly. A lot of them are completely off. A lot of them are very interesting, but mainly what I'm seeing from like half 2025 and now, it's a lot of black hat SEO, DMCA protection, DMCA takedowns, negative SEO jobs. So I really see a shift. As an SEO, obviously, I see the shift in SERPs as well, and I see that black hat is everywhere. So it's a logical approach. And then I thought, I'm going to speak to someone who actually works with this and know more than me. What do you see as a marketing trend? Which skills are starting to be in demand this year?
Sure. So I think it's a really good question. And I think it actually depends on the level of experience somebody has. So I think if we look at the market as a whole, what I've definitely seen is that there are many less graduate opportunities and entry-level opportunities. The market is very much saturated at the moment, which means that there is a surplus, unfortunately, of very skilled people in the market. And what we're seeing is clients taking advantage of that. So previously, there may have been 2 or 3 people at final stage. Now clients are getting 6 people to final stage and then renegotiating on the agreed salary to make sure that they get the best person for the role. And unfortunately, the 100, 150K roles, they're just not really out there at the moment. It seems to be 60 to 100K seems to be a comfortable amount that clients are willing to pay. For anything over that, most candidates are having their salary expectations reduced, which is frightening in many ways because it feels that there is a shift coming. But I think what it does provide is a unique opportunity for people to upskill in different areas.
Absolutely, I agree. Actually, I'm seeing the shift in salaries as well because a few years back, let's say 2 years, I was offered every time for head of director, 150, 160, 130 was like the minimum. And now 100 seems to be the top that they are willing to pay. Unless you are really good in black hat, then they are willing to pay a lot plus bonuses. But for the normal roles, like normal head of SEO for a normal established white hat company, it goes around 80, 90. And I hear this from my colleagues as well. They would ask like, okay, I went for interview, asked for 170. And like, they looked at me like if I had 3 heads. So I see this, but I think it is what it is. The market changes, we need to align. I mean, if the salaries are a little bit lower, then what can you do? They're not going to pay extra money for you if you are nothing special. And I think the sad thing is as well, a lot of people think they are something special and they're simply not. And there is a pool of people because what I'm seeing, lots of companies are sort of struggling with marketing a lot from SEO.
And also a lot of content writing. Downsizing, restructuring. Look at some of the really big businesses that have made big changes over the last couple of years, and they've ended up, shedding a lot of their marketing teams. So now what you have is a pool of very highly qualified people that are really struggling to find roles. In my company at CMC Consulting, one of the things I find, hard is you're having to give feedback to really strong candidates that they haven't got the role. There's nothing they could have done better or differently. It's just that somebody probably with lower salary expectations, they've been offered the position.
Yeah, I'm seeing this quite a lot. It's true. But again, it is what it is. I think as well as a job seeker, you need to adjust. If the salaries are not 150 plus and the salaries are top 100, then you simply need to know what you can ask for. Or if you want more, you need to be on your own. You need to be a consultant and then, struggle every month to find clients and get that 150 in a year.
Yeah. I think one of the challenges in the market at the moment is that it's kind of this dance between the client and the candidate. The client wants to know immediately what the salary expectations are of the candidate, but the candidate doesn't want to outprice themselves in the market. So there's this kind of dichotomy between, you know, what you should say, what you shouldn't say, how transparent you should be, because that salary, they will then come down to that in the final stage and probably try and renegotiate if you get to that final stage. And so our role, you know, within my business is to try and facilitate those conversations in a positive way. And to be honest, we try and keep the salaries back until the client has met with the candidate maybe once or twice, and then we'll give a kind of broad bracket, because you often don't know what the client is looking to pay, and they often don't know until they start to look in the market. And, you know, a role that they thought, oh, you could get someone good at 40K, it's impossible. You need someone at 60 or 70. And so we then want to try and be agile in the candidates that we're providing.
Okay, here I have two questions. Would the client, rather than choose someone cheaper, even though they are lacking the skills, would they rather go that way to save money? Or would they actually, in the end, adjust the budget of 10,000 because they need the skills and they recognize that the skills are what's going to get them the win in the market, or they rather save up? What's the trend here?
I think it's a bit of a chicken and egg. Which one comes first, and what do you do? I think depending on the journey and where the company is, they can look at, you know, if a company is very established and they have large teams, they can probably take more of a risk with hiring someone more junior because they can invest the time. If it's a startup, for example, they want a plug and play option, someone who can come in, hit the ground running. We hear it all the time, particularly on sales. They don't want to train new salespeople. They want salespeople to come in with the established network and basically immediately start making money for the business. So I think it's a mix. Often in startups, because they don't have such high cash flow and available cash, they would probably rather take someone more junior that will grow with the business. If you hire someone very experienced, the chances are that they will probably outgrow that role in 2 to 3 years, and you'll then need to refill it. But if you hire someone junior, you may have them for 5 years because they'll then grow into different roles within the company. So I think it really depends what stage the company is at and how available, you know, cash is to them.
Okay. So which companies are looking the most? Is there like a healthy mixture right now, or is it more like startups are looking more? Or is there, I'm not looking for jobs really, so I don't know. So I'm asking, is there really more startups right now contacting you for talent, or established companies, or do you have a mix?
It's actually a pretty healthy mix of the two. If I look at the businesses that we've worked with, you know, since I set the business up in 2022, so we'll be celebrating our 4-year anniversary in April. A lot of the businesses, you know, that started as startups are now established companies, and we still work with them. But we also get some quite like niche positions with clients that they're probably not able to recruit the people themselves, so they then come to us for support.
And as well, when it comes to salaries, how would you advise the people that are looking? And like, let's say you would have a director of SEO job, you'll reach out to me and I'll be, okay, I'm looking, but I want 170,000. And you know that the budget is 120. Would you advise me, like, be realistic? Right now, the market is like this. Or would you tell me to set a bracket, like from this to this? Like, how do you manage these expectations? Because our egos can be inflamed and we can think that we are super duper worthy. So how do you do that?
So it's a bit of kind of tough love that sometimes you have to say to the candidate, I know what you're looking for is this, but if you're looking to move to a new opportunity, the bracket is really this. I think it's a weighing up exercise. You know, I advise people at the moment that if you're not really unhappy where you are, my advice would be to stay where you are and sit it out for now. Although the market is a little bit more buoyant than it was towards the end of last year, we're still not seeing those much bigger salaries. So if someone is okay where they are, sit tight, wait for your bonus, wait to see what happens in your role, and probably look towards, you know, later on in the year. But yeah, a lot of it is having to discuss openly candidates' expectations and tell them to be kind of realistic considering what's going on. And I mean, I think if you're at the senior end of the market, you must be aware that the market is going through a lot of changes at the moment and that you've got to be flexible. Everybody, the main advice I would give when you're going for a new role is to be flexible. Of course, everybody has their limitations. If you have a family, you're supporting your household, of course there are limitations, but I think you also, have to be realistic considering the current market and what's going on.
I very much agree. I mean, the current market is changing because affiliation is getting slaughtered by Google. Okay, the SEO affiliates are suffering. So the shift is towards the creative marketing, so black hat, Parasite, drop domains, all of that. And as well, you can see that management either stopped believing SEO or made stupid decision and it cost them few assets and they need to let these people go, which means we have got lots and lots and lots of talented content writers, content managers, site managers, SEO people right there. And I think because they need the job, they as well bring down the price. But like, it is changing. The market is definitely changing. Affiliation is aggressive, yet they are losing their ground because of constant Google updates. I don't know how it is for the rest of marketing, but I would say the same. So if, let's say, I am a content writer, and we all know that content writers are struggling, where would you navigate me as my advisor for my career? What would you say? Like, okay, content writing is dying, but you should look into this because I know marketing. What do you think people should build up as skills right now?
So I think, I know that we touched on this, I think upskilling in any way is really, really important. So I think if people have been predominantly in a content role, I would also advise them to focus maybe a little bit on SEO too. Content and SEO have become almost like dual one role for a lot of businesses. They look for content writers with SEO experience. So if you're able to demonstrate, I don't know, maybe you've done a qualification, you've done something kind of through a Google certification, that also makes you a stronger candidate. But it also depends. What we're seeing definitely is a lot of content writers want to work remotely, and a lot of businesses don't want them working remotely, they want them in the office. So you also have to be realistic about your life setup. Are you so pro remote that you won't take an in-office role? And if so, well, maybe that will impact your chances of getting a great new job. We've seen a huge return to office kind of epidemic, however we want to say it, within businesses in Malta, for sure, where everybody was fully remote during COVID, and then, they did a phased return, and now it's hybrid, but mostly in office, or there are certain days you need to be in. So I think, again, it's about reading the market. I wrote an article for IGB Affiliate last year about, who has the power. Is it the employee or the employer? And it used to be, I would say, kind of 50-50. Then during COVID, it was almost all on the employee. We all went home. They wanted to keep us. They would do most things to make sure that the business was operational. So, benefits were high. There are a lot of great things that were being offered. Flexibility was a given, but now it's shifted, and it's definitely the power sits with the employer. And, they're able to say, if you don't want to come into the office, no problem, we'll hire someone that does. And I think that, again, for candidates, you have to understand that shift and be prepared to adapt to that.
Yeah, I see a lot of shift of going back to office, and I think hybrid is healthy because it's great to work with someone right next to you, have the open communication. People forget that, especially in Malta, we are a mixture of every nationality. English is many times not your first language. Mistakes happen. So if you have the person right next to you, sometimes it's just easier. But I personally think hybrid is a very healthy way because, it gives you the opportunity to stay home a little bit, work from there. Because, like, for example, I concentrate the best when I'm left alone because I'm a social person. If I'm in office, I socialize with everyone and I then do nothing. So for me, that would be the ideal setup. But what do you think is the trend? Are we going to keep at least hybrid, or is it trending to go fully back in office? Because I see this quite a lot on-site.
Yeah. I think, again, it's a real mix. I think businesses that have managed to make hybrid a success are continuing with that. But I think it's much easier to have everybody in the office. So it kind of feels that if a company is moving into a more challenging situation, it's easier for them to say, okay, let's get everyone back to the office. We can see what people are doing. We can measure performance. We can manage people properly. It's much harder to manage semi-remote to remote teams. We've seen this. The stats have started to come out of businesses that went fully remote that weren't ready to, and it created, challenges. Working remote doesn't work for everybody. And I would say for very junior people, it's a real challenge to work full time from home. And I always give the example of, I started my recruitment career in London, worked for a large banking sales recruitment team. And my first ever sales calls I did on the sales floor with 100 other people, listening to what people were saying, listening to their pitches, listening to the feedback, and then tailoring my pitch. The thought of doing that on my own at home with no understanding of what I should be saying, what I should be doing, I'm not sure I would have had the courage to have picked up that phone and done my first sales call. But in that environment, you're learning all of the time and you're listening to people. It meant that I could do a sales call within, a week or so of being in the business. And I think that face-to-face interaction, you mentioned that you're very sociable in the office. I think what a lot of people, maybe more junior people, are missing is that social interaction of listening to conversations, of meeting people, of those real life relationships, that although you can foster them online, it's much more of a challenge. And even if we look at a work-life balance, when your office is in your kitchen or your sitting room or your bedroom, you're always at work. To go to the office, to have your laptop there, to then close up and come home, by having a little bit of a separation, it also creates a bit more of a healthy distance between work and home, rather than work and home always being combined.
This is actually a very good point. I think people forget that because they think the work-life balance should be remote. But I'm with you, as I'm working remotely all the time. I am working all the time. Sometimes I get up midnight because I had a great idea and I need to go execute it. But when I was in office, first of all, we used to have these amazing meetings all together, which brought us together. We were spitting ideas like fire. It was great, even if they were silly. Now, as you are separated from people, you're not sure you can do that because you cannot read the room. Like I don't know how the person in their living room feels. And as well, I used to, as you said, I came home, I closed the laptop and I had peace and quiet. Right now, I don't have it. So I think office has got its pluses as well. I don't think 5 days a week is absolutely necessary for everyone. But I would second you on that it's good for juniors. It's good for managers as well. In a moment, you're a manager with team. Lots of people take remote work as holidays. They are barely at their computer. You cannot really legally fully track their computers. You want to give them trust. And then you just see that the performance is declining. So as for managers, I understand why they want people in offices. I do. It's just easier to sort of control. And I'm not saying I'm control freak, but as a manager, you need to have control. I mean, that's your role. So exactly. I think going forward, hybrid is healthy. But I think we might see even full-time in office again. And as you said, roles like content writers, they just don't like it.
Yeah, and I think as well, when you're more junior and you're starting your career, I think it's really important to create the foundations of your work setup, of your work environment. And I think when you're in the office, you build quite healthy, I mean, of course, not always, but you build quite healthy routines. And, I worked in an office basically for, 12 years before COVID happened. So I had built up, good patterns of, I know when I get stressed, I would know when I would need a break. And so translating that to home office was much easier than if I'd never worked in an office before and suddenly I'm doing 10 hours straight and I'm not even going to the bathroom or, getting a glass of water. In the same way that if you're in the office, you would get up, you would make coffee, you would chat to someone, you would have lunch. When we all came home during COVID, we tried to replicate that. So, me and some of my colleagues, we would have working lunches where we would just sit, video call on, munching whatever we were eating. So it was like we were sat in the office together, but from home. And I think that if I had never worked in an office, I wouldn't really know how you're meant to work. Do you work all day and then at 4 o'clock you're just absolutely exhausted? Or, you end up taking 3-hour breaks, walking the dog, doing the washing, and suddenly it's midday and you've actually done no work at all.
Absolutely. Plus, as well, the friendships you build in office are lasting. I'm still in touch with people that I worked with 10 years ago in office, and we're still friends. Wow. However, people I meet just online, it's so easy to cut them off your life. You don't build the friendship. So I miss that. That's why I go for so many conferences. I try to meet up people because the face-to-face interaction is just different, and I think it's healthier, and I think it's good for business.
Yeah, totally. I 100% agree. And I always advise, any clients I work with on the consultancy side, if you're fully remote, make sure that you're getting some or all of your team together, whether it's at conferences, whether you do an in-person event, whatever it is. My business is fully remote, but I make sure that whenever I'm in Cyprus, whether I'm in Malta, I meet up with the team so that we can spend proper, face-to-face time together, go for lunch, go for a walk, go for dinner, whatever it is, but spend that time. Because although you can build authentic relationships online, of course you can, I feel that it takes a lot longer to build the trust and that kind of work respect. Whereas when you're sat next to somebody, you can build it much quicker.
How do you feel about upscaling to AI automation, AI this, AI that? Should we pay attention to it and become experts, or is it just a buzz in your opinion? It's just a phase that will go out.
So look, I don't think robots are coming for all of our jobs. And I think that's something that I try and make really clear. I don't think we need to panic, but I think AI is here to stay for sure. And I think it's all about using it to support us in the work that we do. I'm very happy that so far AI is not clever enough to do my job, to do your job, to do pretty much everybody's job. It should be used as a tool to support us in our work. So, for example, with my team, we use it sometimes for job descriptions, drafting job descriptions. And we will then send a template or a draft over to a client. Where previously it may have taken us 3 or 4 hours because we would need to go on job sites, we would be copying and pasting, we can do it in a matter of seconds. I think the problem that we're seeing now is that people are overly relying or overly reliant on AI. And I have seen examples of candidates going through a test phase at final stage interview, and the entire test has been written by AI. And you can tell if you don't tailor it properly, you can tell. You can tell when someone has written a LinkedIn post and they've only used AI, even in the way that it's written. You can tell when content is written by it. You can tell when articles or columns are written by it. What I always say to everyone is use it as a foundation. Do your brainstorming, use it as kind of like a piece of the puzzle, but you're still making the puzzle and you should still be putting the components together. Much like if you're looking for inspiration for a LinkedIn post, maybe you ask the AI to support you there, but you're not using it solely for that. Because you also run the risk now with LinkedIn, for example, your post will have much less reach if LinkedIn picks up that it's an AI written post. So with LinkedIn making the changes and kind of, I don't want to say punishing, that you're not promoting original own written, full written content. I think that, we're seeing a shift in the market that people need to use their common sense and their own brains and their own authenticity to be able to interpret and use AI. I would say to use it as a tool is great, but to become overly reliant on it is a real risk. And actually, the more you rely on it, the more you take away from your own ability to be able to think creatively. And that for me is something which worries me a little bit. I mean, within my business, we will always use it, I guess, for more of the basic admin tasks, but I will never be using it for interviewing candidates, for screening candidates. The reason clients come to my business is because they value the human interaction and the human touch. If I'm just going to put it through AI, why are they not doing it themselves and, paying a fraction of the cost?
Absolutely. Just imagine working fully remote and your only partner would be AI. You go crazy.
Exactly.
We are social creatures, so we still need human interaction.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think this is full of fantastic information.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me. And I think we should follow up later in a year to see what you predict for 2027.
Definitely.
Because the market is changing for all of us. And thank you for letting us know how you see it from your expert eyes.
Thank you for having me. I've really loved being here today.
Thank you.
Good. I'm going to take a picture for my LinkedIn, if that's okay. I'll keep